What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying up a little intruder fly. This right here is an egg sucking leech. It's one of my favorite to tie up for steelhead, so if you are fishing for steelhead a lot, this goes for any Great Lakes, even sea run steelhead. If you're out on the west coast, this is an awesome pattern. Pretty easy to tie. I put a little twist in it to kind of make it my own, but I'll show you kind of the steps you can take to just make it really simple, and if you just want to get out there and fish. So the hook we have in the vise is a Mustad. This is a stinger hook. This is a size 4, and all I'm using this for is the shank, because I like to put a bead on it, and with the other shanks I can't fit a bead on it, so what I do is I just put a bead, tie my fly, then I just break it off in my vise after, and it works out really well. So that's a size 4, and it works out pretty well for the shank and the eye and the bead that I use. The bead is a 5/32 pink bead. You can use orange. I like this pink with the purple, but it's all personal preference. I obviously have some orange ones tied, some olive ones, but this is kind of the go-to around here, so that's what I'm going to be tying. The thread is just a GSP. This is Vivis, and it's a 50D. And we're just going to start our thread right behind this bead. I actually keep this shank pretty short. What's cool about tying it on just like a regular hook is you have this whole shank. But I usually only tie to about right here. So that's pretty much all I'm going to be using for this fly. Since it's going to be intruder, you obviously have the hook coming off the back, and you don't need that much of a shank anyway. So the first thing we're going to be tying in is our wire. This is the Senyo's thin intruder wire. It's the SIW11. It's for size 6 or smaller. Now I'm just going to cut about a 6-inch piece here with some old fly tying scissors. And what I like to do, I like to tie the hook in first, then once I have it where I want it, I can just take it off and tie the rest of the fly. So what I use for a trailer hook is just a Gamakatsu. This is a size 8, I believe. So I'm just going to thread this onto the hook here. And the reason why I like to do this is so I have it gauged nice, so I can take off the hook, because when I store them I keep the hooks off them just so they don't jab into my fingers and such. So once I get that on my wire, I'm just going to put a couple wraps right on top of the shank here just to kind of secure it. And you want that flat, and you want these wires to be straight back. You don't want them to overlay at all. The first time I tied it in there, kind of twisted on me. Twist it again. So you want this flat if you are taking off your hooks. There we go. So I like to keep this about, I usually just eyeball it, but I usually keep it about 1.5 inches-ish. Just like right there is perfect. Just enough so I can take this off, just like so. Then put it back on. But we're just going to take that off, just so I don't get jabbed in the finger with it, because I have before, and they're definitely really sharp. So I'm just going to bring this wire all the way up to behind this bead, Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold it back, and I'm going to judge where I'm going to cut it. I'm just going to come in with those scissors again, just cut it, just fold it back on top of each other. Just like so. Crank it down pretty good. Be careful with the wire because it will fray your thread. So I'm just going to get that all nice and tight in there. Now I'm just going to come in with a little bit of super glue. Dab that over the thread base. Now the first material we're going to be tying in is just a little crystal flash. This is just a purple crystal flash. We're just going to grab 2 strands here. I like to keep it pretty sparse. Now we're just going to tie these right on top. Just like so. Now I'm just going to come with my scissors and kind of just cut one of these just a little bit shorter, just so they don't stick together when they're going through the water. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this piece a little bit shorter to about the end of the bend in that hook. Then I'm just going to wrap that back over top, just like so. Now we're just going to get a little bit of dubbing here. We're just going to put a little dubbing ball right at the base. So I'm just going to be using some SLF Prism. This is hot purple. I just put a little bit of beeswax on this thread just so this sticks a little bit better. Just like so. Now we're going to be tying in our tail, and for our tail we're going to be using some zonker strip. This is going to be the micro zonker. This is the hairline micro. This is the purple with black barb. Can't find the pack right now, but it's the new hairline micro. So I'm going to get my scissors here, and I'm just going to cut a little notch in the hide just so it's not square. And I'm just kind of putting this to a point almost. Just like so. As far as this tail goes, I wanted to go just a little bit past the actual hook when it's on, because I don't want to get short striked. But usually when steelhead are taking this, they're taking it. There's no short strikes. So, but just in case, I like to tie it in a little bit. Just a little bit longer than the where the hook would be. So my hook's right there. I'm just going to tie this pretty much right to the back of that crystal flash. And you don't want that crystal flash to go past your zonker. You want to keep it just before it. So I'm going to tie this in nice and tight here. just like so. Now next thing we're going to be tying in is a little bit of hackle. And the reason why I like to tie in this hackle is because it's stiff and it's going to keep the Marabou propped up kinda, so it's not all sitting right flat on the hook. It's going to give it a little bit of profile. So you'll see once I actually kind of tie this in, then tie in the Marabou. So this is just a saddle hackle. This is just a purple. And we're just going to prep this feather. So this is pretty much adding bulk without adding lots of material. It's just going to make this fly look a little bit bigger in the water without adding lots of material, so it still cuts through the water nice. So I'm just going to wrap this hackle in. So about 3 turns is just enough. I'm just really looking for a base. It's a nice kind of stiff base. Push all these fibers back. Tie them all down. Just like so. As you can see, it's kind of just acting as a prop. Next material we're tying in is our Marabou. Just trying to get this stem laid down. And I'm just going to be using some Strung Marabou. This is a purple. And we're going to find a nice little feather here. That's got some nice fibers on it. So I'm just going to prep this, and we're going to tie this in as you would a soft hackle almost. So I'm going to tie it in by the tip and just take wraps back. So that's my feather right there. And what I like to do with all my Marabou is just use my nail kinda and just take off all this stringy part. You can leave it if you want, but it's just all personal preference. I like it to be a little bit shorter than the actual body, so once I tie it in, I kind of trim it with my nail, but I just like to do that before I tie it in. So I just got this little point there. We're just going to cut that to use it as a tie-in anchor. Then we're going to tie this in nice and tight. Now we can grab our hackle pliers, pull this up, wrap this in, and with this you want it gets caught really easy, so I just like to try to keep it fluffed out as much as possible, just like so. And we're just going to wrap in this whole feather. Tie that off. Pull that back. I'm just going to make some nice tight wraps here in front, just so it stays in. Just like so. And that's actually pretty perfect. I just want pretty much the tail end kind of just popping out a bit, just like so. Now you can fish this just as it is right now. Just make the shank a little bit shorter than when you tie this Marabou in. That would be the last thing you tie in. So you could fish that right now and catch fish on it, no problem. But what I like to do is add a little bit of more flash to the front, then I'm gonna add a little guinea feather. So that's what I'm gonna do. And we're just gonna make a little dubbing loop right here. Let's tie that off. Get our dubbing spinner. And we're just gonna be using that same dubbing that we used, this SLF prism. So we're not gonna put a lot. I'm just gonna put like a little pinch right here. Just that. Like it's pretty much nothing, but it comes through that guinea feather nice, and it just adds a little bit more flash to the fly. Because with these flies, I don't like putting a lot of flash in them. I try to make them as natural as possible. Try to keep them as natural as possible. So we're just going to dub this in without getting that marabou feather caught up. I'm just going to brush that out. This is pretty much just enough for like 1.5 wraps. Just enough to add a little bit of flash in there. I can tie that off. Nice and tight. Cut that dubbing loop out. Kind of pull back on everything. Just give a couple nice cranks in there. Then I'm just going to brush this out a bit. And as you can see, it's pretty sparse, that flash, but it really comes into this marabou. And it looks really nice when it's blended in there. You could also use like Palmer chenille or something along that, predator wrap, but I just like this color of this dubbing. I just like a little bit just popping through there. I think it looks really nice. So for our soft hackle part, we're just going to be using a strung guinea feather. This is a purple. And you could fish it just like this. You don't have to add this in, but I do just because I think it looks good. So I'm just going to prep this feather as I would a soft hackle. I'm going to tie this in by the tip. Tie that in nice and tight. Then we come with our hackle pliers again. Grab that stem. Kind of just pull these back so they're facing rearward. Then we can just palmer this in. So I'm going to be putting this whole feather in, even though it's not that big. Just adds a little bit more volume to the front of this fly. Just like so. And I can come in and cut that stem out. Just make some more nice tight wraps. Front of that, and kind of just brush that out. Get all those fibers that are stuck kind of just all free, laying back just like so. Now we can just throw a nice little wet finish in here. I'm just going to throw 2 because it is a steelhead fly. We can cut that thread out and you are good to fish. So this is a relatively easier pattern to tie if you're just getting into intruder style flies. It's a good one to practice with because it's not that hard to screw up. So if you want to catch some fish you could literally wrap a piece of Marabou on a hook and catch steelhead. But this is kind of just a my version, I guess. It's I like adding a little bit of soft hackle, and it just adds a little bit more contrast to it. You could add some more flash in there if you want. You can get as creative with it as possible. But this is kind of my go-to pattern for swinging. But hope you like today's video, guys. If you have any questions about the fly, anything like that, you can drop that down in the comment section. If you want to see the list of materials that I used, you can check the description for that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Actually, I'll show you how to break this off. So I just pull all this up, I leave a little bit of meat before the dubbing there. Then you just twist that. Then you're good to go. So I store these without the hook, but you can keep the hooks on them if you want. There you go. Little egg sucking leech. Thanks a lot again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.